The summer sun has always carried a strange double-edged meaning for royals. On one hand, it is the season of relaxation, of quiet escapes, and of treasured moments away from the public gaze. On the other, it is the time when paparazzi lenses become sharper, when whispers turn into headlines, and when the careful walls of privacy erected around royal lives begin to crumble. For Queen Letizia of Spain, this summer was meant to be a carefully guarded sanctuary, a time to step away from the endless scrutiny of Madrid's corridors of power, to breathe freely without cameras chasing her every move. Yet, in a twist that has left Spain buzzing with speculation, her greatest fear has just been realized. The secret vacation that was supposed to shield her from pressure and attention has been exposed, thrusting her once again under the burning spotlight she wanted so desperately to avoid. It was not supposed to happen this way. Letizia Ortiz, who climbed from a respected journalist to the throne as Queen Consort of Spain, has built her public image with a delicate balance of discipline, poise, and careful control. Every gesture, every appearance, every word spoken has been calculated to maintain the aura of a modern yet traditional royal. But in private, away from the polished world of official engagements, she has always longed for normalcy, a quiet dinner, a stroll without bodyguards, a holiday without the prying eyes of cameras. This desire for privacy has not just been a preference, it has been her greatest fear to lose. And now, that fear has come to life. Reports began swirling when local residents spotted a familiar figure in a remote Mediterranean coastal town, dressed not in regal gowns but in casual summer wear, blending seamlessly among tourists. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a rumor, just another speculation about where the Spanish royals might be spending their summer break. But soon, grainy photographs began circulating, capturing Queen Letizia in a setting that was clearly far removed from her official royal duties. What was meant to be an invisible retreat suddenly became front-page news, with tabloids seizing the opportunity to dissect every detail of her supposed escape. This revelation did more than expose her physical location, it pierced the carefully maintained shield of privacy that Letizia has fought so hard to protect. From the moment she became queen, Letizia's relationship with the press has been fraught with tension. Once a journalist herself, she knows better than anyone how narratives can be shaped, twisted, and magnified. That knowledge has made her cautious, sometimes even cold, towards reporters who seek to peer into her personal life. Yet despite that vigilance, the one thing she feared most, the intrusion into her rare private escapes, has now materialized. The Spanish public has always been fascinated by Letizia's dual identity, the working-class woman who became a royal, the journalist who crossed the boundary into the monarchy, the modern mother who tries to balance tradition with independence. And with this secret vacation now in the headlines, the fascination has grown into obsession. Where exactly did she go? Who was with her? Was King Felipe by her side, or was this a quiet escape for herself and her daughters, Princess Leonor and Infanta Sofia? These questions now dominate conversations across Spain, fueling debates on television, across newspapers, and in the buzzing digital sphere of social media. Observers note that Letizia's fears have always been rooted not only in her personal longing for privacy but also in her awareness of Spain's delicate royal image. Unlike the British monarchy, which thrives on a constant feed of publicity, the Spanish royal family has faced moments of deep crisis, corruption scandals, political criticism, and declining popularity. For them, every action, even a vacation, carries symbolic weight. A private escape can easily be spun as an abandonment of duty, or worse, as evidence of distance within the royal household. This is why Letizia has guarded her retreats with such ferocity, knowing full well how easily perception can spiral out of control. Yet this time, her fear has not been misplaced. The exposure of her secret holiday has already begun to spark controversy. Some critics argue that the Queen should not hide her travels, especially if they are funded, in part, by the public purse. Others sympathize with her, noting that even royals deserve time away from the unrelenting pressures of their position. The debate reveals once again the fragile tightrope that Queen Letizia must walk. Too much transparency risks overexposure, but too much secrecy invites suspicion. Those close to her, however, describe the Queen's distress not in terms of public perception but in personal disappointment. For Letizia, vacations are not mere luxuries, they are precious windows of escape, moments where she can be herself, not the Queen of Spain but simply Letizia Ortiz. The breach of that sanctuary strikes at her deepest fear, that she may never truly live a life unobserved, that every corner she retreats to will eventually be discovered and consumed by the public eye. In truth, Letizia's struggle is not unique among royals. History is filled with stories of monarchs and consorts whose private escapes have been shattered by exposure. Princess Diana, perhaps the most famous example, saw her vacations endlessly stalked by paparazzi, her private time constantly violated. Even today, royals like Prince William and Kate Middleton, or King Frederick and Queen Mary of Denmark, battle similar challenges as photographers hunt them down during family holidays. But for Letizia, who has always maintained a tighter, more controlled image than most, the exposure of this secret vacation feels particularly devastating. The photographs, now spreading across international outlets, capture her in moments far removed from royal protocol. Casual, relaxed, even vulnerable, images that contrast starkly with the polished woman who stands on the balcony of the royal palace in Madrid or represents Spain on the international stage. And while some see this as humanizing, others view it as a crack in the armor of royalty, a reminder that beneath the crown is a woman struggling to balance two identities. The impact of this revelation is not merely about one summer holiday. It reaches into the core of Letizia's relationship with the monarchy itself. She has always carried herself with an aura of discipline, often accused by detractors of being cold, too calculated, too aloof. Yet now, with her private world laid bare, the Spanish people glimpse another side of her, the side she fought to keep hidden. Whether this will soften her public image or ignite further criticism remains to be seen. Royal experts are already weighing in. Some suggest that this exposure may force Letizia to embrace a new approach, one where she accepts the inevitability of public scrutiny and leans into transparency. Others argue that it may drive her further into secrecy, doubling her efforts to shield her family and herself from unwanted intrusion. The truth likely lies somewhere in between, a delicate negotiation between the duty she owes as queen and the humanity she clings to as Letizia Ortiz. The Spanish royal household has remained silent so far, issuing no statements about the vacation. This silence only adds to the intrigue, fueling speculation about what the exposure means for the family's internal dynamics. Was Felipe supportive of this secret trip? Were her daughters part of it? Or was this, as some whisper, a personal retreat for a woman carrying the invisible weight of a crown that has never sat easily on her head? For Letizia, the moment is deeply personal. Her greatest fear, the loss of control over her private life, has unfolded before her eyes. And in this moment, Spain is reminded once again that behind the glittering titles, behind the gowns and ceremonies, lies a woman who has never fully been able to escape the world she once reported on as a journalist. The watcher has become the watched, and her summer of secrecy has become the nation's hottest story. But to truly understand why this moment cuts so deeply, one must go back to the beginning of Letizia Ortiz's extraordinary journey, a story that seemed improbable even by fairy tale standards. Before she ever wore a crown, she was a woman of words, a reporter who made her living by chasing the truth, crafting stories for the Spanish people, and analyzing the world from the other side of the lens. As a television journalist, Letizia was fearless, determined, and fiercely intelligent. She covered political scandals, social upheavals, and international crises, never hesitating to step into the spotlight when duty demanded it. In those days, Letizia was known not for being glamorous but for her sharp mind, her incisive questions, and her refusal to be intimidated. She was not a figure of fantasy but of reality, a hard-working professional navigating the unforgiving world of journalism. No one could have predicted that this woman, so grounded in the world of reporting, would suddenly find herself becoming the most reported-on woman in Spain. Yet fate, as it often does with royals, had other plans. When she first crossed paths with Prince Felipe, now King Felipe VI of Spain, the romance stunned the nation. How could a crown prince, expected to marry within royal circles or at least the aristocracy, fall in love with a journalist, a divorced woman from a modest background? The news shocked Spain, divided opinion, and immediately thrust Letizia into the role of an outsider stepping into one of Europe's most tradition-bound institutions. For some, she embodied a refreshing modernity, a symbol of progress for a monarchy that had often seemed distant from the people. For others, she was an interloper, someone whose presence could destabilize the delicate image of the crown. From the moment of their engagement, Letizia became the subject of relentless scrutiny. Every outfit she wore, every gesture she made, every glance caught by cameras was dissected and debated. Her past as a journalist, once a mark of professionalism, was suddenly wielded against her, with critics accusing her of being too ambitious, too controlling, too aware of how narratives could be spun. The press that she once commanded had turned into an unforgiving beast, hungry for every detail of her transformation from reporter to royal. This is why privacy became so precious to her. Unlike those born into royalty, Letizia had known a world where she could walk freely, enjoy anonymity, and live without her every move being catalogued. To lose that freedom overnight was more than a sacrifice, it was a personal wound that she carried quietly. And so, when she became queen, she clung to the idea of carving out hidden spaces, moments where she could escape the gaze of the monarchy's watchful audience. Her vacations became more than leisure, they became her final sanctuary. But the crown, as history teaches, rarely allows such indulgence. In Spain, where republican sentiments simmer beneath the surface, the monarchy exists on fragile ground. Every gesture is symbolic, every action scrutinized for meaning. When King Juan Carlos faced scandals of corruption and a controversial hunting trip during an economic crisis, the monarchy's reputation nearly collapsed. King Felipe and Queen Letizia worked tirelessly to rebuild trust, presenting themselves as modern, dutiful, transparent royals. For Felipe, this meant projecting an image of impeccable leadership. For Letizia, it meant balancing her role as a symbol of Spain with her fierce desire to remain, in some way, herself. This is why the exposure of her secret vacation is not just about photographs, it is about symbolism. The public sees not merely a queen in casual attire but the unraveling of a carefully constructed image. To some Spaniards, it raises questions. What is she hiding? Why must her trips remain secret? And what does this say about her relationship with the monarchy itself? The whispers grow louder, echoing through tabloids and television debates. Was this trip funded privately, or did taxpayer money play a role? Was she vacationing with her family or alone? These questions, left unanswered by the palace's silence, fuel speculation that damages the very image Letizia has fought to protect. For her supporters, however, the issue is simpler. She is a human being, a mother, and a woman entitled to privacy. They argue that her fear has always been justified because the intrusion into her life has often crossed ethical lines. Letizia has faced criticisms about her appearance, her fashion choices, even her weight and health, topics that should remain deeply personal but are instead paraded across front pages. If such intimate matters can be made into public controversies, then surely the exposure of her vacation confirms her greatest fear, that nothing in her life will ever remain truly her own. And yet, there is a paradox here. For all her caution and privacy, Letizia has also been one of Europe's most visible queens. Her fashion choices spark global headlines, her speeches on education and women's rights attract international praise, and her appearances alongside King Felipe symbolize the stability of Spain's monarchy. She has mastered the art of looking composed, controlled, and regal at every official outing. But this mastery only deepens the contrast when the world sees her outside that carefully curated image. The photographs of her secret vacation do not simply show Letizia, they show the Letizia she doesn't want the world to see. And in that exposure lies the sting of her greatest fear. The Spanish royal household now faces a delicate challenge. Silence can be powerful, but it can also breed suspicion. Should they confirm the vacation and present it as a natural, deserved family escape, they risk criticism about funding and secrecy. Should they continue to deny or deflect, they risk appearing evasive, as though there is something to hide. And so, the monarchy walks its familiar tightrope, knowing that public trust is as fragile as glass. What complicates the matter further is the timing. Spain, like much of Europe, is navigating economic challenges, political polarization, and debates about the monarchy's relevance. In such times, the public demands transparency, honesty, and accountability from its royals. A secret vacation, no matter how innocent, can easily be painted as an indulgence at odds with the struggles of ordinary citizens. Letizia, who has always tried to embody the modern, relatable queen, suddenly finds herself portrayed as distant, secretive, and fearful. And yet, beyond the politics and the press, there is the personal dimension, the one that touches the very core of who Letizia is. This is not just about Spain, or duty, or monarchy. This is about a woman who has spent years wrestling with her own identity, torn between the role she chose by marrying Felipe and the self she once was before the crown. Her vacations were her lifeline to that past self, her chance to feel free, anonymous, and whole. Now, with that sanctuary shattered, one wonders what toll this moment will take on her psyche. Will she retreat further into caution, building even higher walls around herself? Or will she find strength in vulnerability, allowing the Spanish people to see her not just as their queen but as a woman navigating the same struggle between public life and private needs that so many face in different forms? History shows that such moments can define a royal's legacy. Diana's vacations made her relatable but also exposed her to tragedy. The British royals have often turned invasions of privacy into battles that shape their relationship with the public. In Denmark, Queen Mary and King Frederick balanced carefully staged family holidays with controlled doses of visibility to maintain relatability. In Spain, Letizia's decision, or lack of decision, on how to handle this moment could alter how future generations remember her reign. As the days pass and the photographs spread, Spain waits to see how its queen responds. For now, her silence speaks volumes, echoing the truth she has always known but never wanted to admit, that her greatest fear, the loss of her private self, has indeed come true. The queen who once wrote the stories of others now finds her own story written for her, a narrative she cannot control, a headline she cannot rewrite. And in this cruel twist, the journalist-turned-queen must live with the very intrusion she once wielded as a tool of her profession. The world watches, fascinated, critical, divided. And as this drama unfolds, we are left with one lingering question. In a modern age where the line between public and private has all but disappeared, can Queen Letizia of Spain ever reclaim the sanctuary she has lost? Or has her fear revealed the unavoidable truth that for royalty, privacy is not a right, but an illusion?